Welcome to In Chambers with Muhammad Maoga. These are conversations about members of the firm and the law. I am honored to be having this conversation today with my people master. I owe most of what I know about the law and about life, some of which I shouldn't know, to this gentleman, Professor, Senior Counsel, EGH, Chartered Arbitrator, Githu Muigai. Thank you for joining us today, Professor, in this edition of In Chambers with Muhammad Maoga. It is a great privilege to have you here today. I'd like us to start, Prof, if you don't mind, with Mr. Githu Muigai, not Professor Githu Muigai. Before Professor, before Senior Counsel, or the other titles that you've acquired in the recent past. Do you know how many there are? Which titles there are?
No. First, Jeff, I want to thank you for the very kind remarks you've made about my contribution to your career. I just want to clarify for history's sake that all the good things I taught you, all the others you have learned on your own.
Well taken, Prof. So to your many titles?
Well, quite frankly, I feel like a man in borrowed robes because I came to this city and to the university to study the law and be the best lawyer that I could be. And then along the journey of life, things happened. And all those other things that you have said happened. I didn't set about to achieve them. They came as part of the grace of God.
Okay, interesting to know that. Is there a title that you think you should have that you don't yet have?
No, because actually, if I was more of a vain man than I already am, I would refer myself to honorable justice in addition, because as you may know, I served in the African Court of Justice. So I have the title of justice, I don't use it. I was a member of parliament for 2 years as Attorney General. I could use that title, I don't use it. I have my doctorate, which I worked very hard for, as you know. I don't use it. And I think in this country, one is lucky not to use doctorate because virtually every political person claims to be a doctor of something or other. So I think it is no longer an honorable title.
Okay, so back to Master Githu Muigai, the boy. Give us some insights about your childhood. What was it like? What do you remember about it?
Oh, well, I grew up in, although I was born in Nairobi, and in the early years, my parents lived and worked here. My father was a civil servant, so we moved all over the country in his official capacity. Then we finally settled in Kiambu town, which now I consider to be my home. Although my grandfather and my great-grandfather did come from the bigger Kiambu, the Commonwealth of Kiambu. So I just felt at home that Kiambu became our home. And I grew up there in the town, and it was a charming little place then.
Is that Ndumberi?
No, Kiambu town itself. St. Andrews, my mother bought a farm there much later. Actually, when I was going to high school already. So I enjoyed my life there. It was a charming little town. There wasn't much going on.
Where did you go to school?
The township school. It's called St. James Kiambu Primary School. I still go there. As you may know, I am still connected with a children's feeding center there.
Yes, that's the foundation, Githu Muigai Foundation.
Yeah, it's part of paying my debt to society.
We'll come back to that a bit later. Tell us something about your childhood and what do you think about your childhood could have led you to become a lawyer, a career in law?
Well, first, I enjoyed reading a lot. One of the things about growing up in a township is that there isn't that much to do. My mother had a shop, and near her shop was an old, pawn shop. And in the 60s, Kiambu had a lot of white farmers. And as some of them were beginning to leave, they would come and sell their books, their toys, or whatever there. So I could pick up books for very, very little, 10 cents, 20 cents, 50 cents. So I read a lot. And that inspired me. It's like I was living in a bigger world than my small hometown of Kiambu. And so I picked up a gift for language and for storytelling, for writing. And I think that started me off on a journey to law. As I grew older, and especially when I went to junior high school, part of my holidays were spent at the courthouse. I would listen to these cases, and it was very, very interesting.
Which courthouse?
The courthouse in Kiambu.
Okay.
It's still there, Kiambu. And the courthouse was full of drama. And I developed this passion about law as drama.
What took you there in the first place? How did you think
to entertain? To spend time, a place to listen to, It's like later on when I came to the university, I used to go to Parliament and sit in Parliament in the visitors' gallery and listen. And it was just a way of killing time. But then I got interested and attracted to the law. The luminaries of the law at the time, they were very, very colorful men.
Who are those?
People like Jujiadis, Byron Jujiadis, people like S.M. Otieno. And it was fascinating just watching these men, do their thing. And I said, look, this is interesting. Emmanuel Okubasu, who became a judge, a Court of Appeal judge, and later a very, very dear friend, was the first African resident magistrate there. And he was a very inspiring man, and he did a lot to, inspire me to a career in law.
What age were you at that time?
I was in junior high school. I was 15 years old.
Okay. Where in junior high?
Oh, I was in a school called Gedega High School.
Gedega High School?
Yeah, which was way up the road from Kiambu town.
How did you chance on meeting Okubasu, Judge?
Oh, no. I didn't meet him now personally until I came to practice law. But I when we got to know each other, I used to tell him about
going
the
to his
historical
court.
whatever, and he was very amused by that.
You mentioned about your mother owning a shop within the town. Did you get to work there? What kind of a shop was it?
A lot. And I think that if I have a work ethic, I picked it from my mother. And we used to do school uniforms, especially for girls, school uniforms for girls, cardigans. And
did you learn how to sew?
Oh, yes, I did. I can do it even today. I did it on the old Singer sewing machine.
The one with the...
Yeah, the one with
the pedals. Yes.
And I learned to work with the needle with my hands.
Did you learn any entrepreneurship skills while you were
Oh
there?
yes, I did. We would come to town to pick the material from Tomboya Street and all those areas around Konja Mosque, and I learned to bargain with the Indian businessmen who were selling this thing, and and I learned the dignity of labor, which I think is a good thing.
Could you please, for the sake of your listeners, could you please just break that down, especially for the young advocate or young graduate? What is the benefits of that labor?
Well, I learned that you can support yourself by the labor of your sweat, and that there was no embarrassment and no shame in being able to work with your hands. That in fact, it is people who don't work with their hands who should be ashamed of themselves. So the background there was that virtually everybody worked. When we got the farm in Dumberi, then in fact working with the hands went to another level, because now we used to harvest the coffee, clean the pigsty, really difficult stuff.
Handy stuff.
And this coffee business is not a joke, because you pick the coffee the whole day, you bring in the vehicle to take you to the coffee factory, and you spend the whole night in the factory waiting to weigh the coffee, because there are queues. It's a difficult life, my friend.
So would you say that some of the lessons you learned from your mother at that early age, you apply them to date?
Yes, very much so. I apply them to my life to this day. I am not afraid of work. I respect people who work, because I know that they do so, with great dignity on their part. I am suspicious of privilege, and quite frankly, contemptuous of privilege. And I have never allowed people who are privileged to patronize me, because I know that I have made my own life with my own energy and my own momentum.
And because you've done that, and just speaking from what you've said, how do you balance with your children, for them who have been born in what someone would say is privilege, that they don't get into what you find to be a privileged entitlement?
That's a whole new war zone. Parenting, as you yourself knows, is it's the only job that you embark on without a manual. There is no manual, and it is trial and error. But I think most of us preach. We preach to children what they should be, but the truth is that children watch what we are and do what we do. So that the best way to parent, I think, is to parent by example. And that's what I've tried to do in my own life. I do not think I am a perfect parent, but I do think that I have been able to transmit values to my children that can help them to be good citizens, to be patriotic citizens, to be God-fearing human beings, to be good neighbors, and to live a life of purpose.
Thank you. I'd like us to move to, we finished with your early life. You are known as one of the best teachers in law, probably the best teacher generally.
I couldn't claim that, my friend.
Oh, I would want to know, or your listeners would want to know, what you were like as a student in school and at the university. What were you like as a student? Were you a cheeky student?
Radical.
You're radical. Please break that down for us.
Well, initially, when I first started studying law, I was very inspired by the idea that we could use law to do good, and not just good in individual cases, but to change society for the better. I was concerned that the disparities in incomes and opportunities that existed in society were not necessary. They were not God created. We could do something about it. So look at, say, land ownership. You would have this large tracts of land in which people, some were even absentee landlords, and you would have people living in slums without even an eighth of an acre or anything like that. I thought that law should be in those areas,
Social engineering.
social engineering the community and so on. And therefore, the university itself, the faculty of law, was a very conservative establishment. Save for William Mutunga, who was on the left, well, even to this day, still on the left. There was William Mutunga, Shadrach, Billy Guto, and they were left of left. The rest of the faculty was quite conservative, and we spent many years, like my late friend and teacher who I really admired. He was tremendous individual, tremendous intellectual, Okothagendo. I have never met a lawyer of his stature anywhere in the world that I traveled.
That's quite high praise.
And I wrestled with him from first year until we finished, because he was extremely conservative, but very, very, very informed lawyer. So we wrestled about the nature of law, what it could do, what its limits were. And he thought I was a Marxist. I told him I was a social democrat. So I was more to the left than to the right of the establishment of the day.
Did that land you in trouble?
Well, not necessarily, actually, because the university had a very free intellectual atmosphere, actually. So whereas there were many, many conflicting thought processes, everybody was pretty much left on their own to take the sides that they wanted. Of course, in the bigger university community, there were the entire university community was more radical, much, much, much more radical than me. And that was, so that had its own dynamics on the side.
Student union?
I never got involved in student union politics, although I was tempted, and I was friends with many people who were in student union. I was so determined to get my degree. I was very clear in my mind, and that my passport from the backwaters of Dumberi was going to be the degree, and I wasn't going to compromise that.
No distractions.
And I tried to keep my eye on the prize.
Okay. Was law your first choice? I remember, I don't know if it's the same as your time. Our time, we had 4 choices when you're selecting university. Do you have the same choice?
Yes, but I just wrote law. Then I put...
you cancelled the rest of the
Yeah, I said, if
options.
I don't get law, then I will go and do something else.
And become a farmer?
Probably I would have gone back to help my mother, and maybe I would be the finest tailor still.
Now, did you find the study of law at the university easy? Was it easy? Was it interesting? Was it engaging?
I found it extremely fascinating. I couldn't have enough of it. It was everything I had ever desired. Where my intellectual curiosity may have been dampened in high school by reading things that I wasn't good at, like mathematics, for the first time, I was now charging at full throttle. And my mind was acting at its best, and I really had a good time.
Were you a bookworm in the university?
No, actually, it came easy. So I didn't need to be a bookworm.
Okay.
Yeah. Even if I say so myself, I won every prize from first year to when we graduated.
Oh, okay, that's
every.
good. Yeah. Okay, that's good. Were you a thespian?
Yes, indeed. And I enjoyed that very much.
Well, tell us something about that.
Oh, I even took a class, an optional class in theater when I was a second year. The people who were in third year in the Bachelor of Arts class doing literature, there was a theater class. And the instructor was Washira Waigwa, who was a friend of mine who I had met in the theater. So I had classmates like Kibisu Kabatesi.
Oh,
yeah, we
interesting.
studied with them. We did a play. That class, the project was a play. So I had enough time to study law and to study theater.
And you acted?
Yes.
Oh,
and
that's
enjoyed
good.
it.
You wrote poems? Do you write poems?
I wrote poems. I wrote book reviews for The Nation. Yeah. There was a column in The Nation called Bwana Shida, which Kivutha Kibwana had been writing. Then he went off to Harvard. Then I inherited it and wrote it for quite some time.
In Swahili?
No, Bwana Shida. It was in English. Yeah, so let us say I was a man of means in the narrow setting of the university, because The Nation paid me to do the book reviews, to do the whatever. Yeah.
Let's talk about Columbia Law School. Tell us about that. Why did you decide to go there?
Well, it was about being at the right place at the right time. Because what happened is that by the time we were finishing the third year, the University of Nairobi had negotiated with the U.S. government, I think. No, with what was the fellowship called? Fulbright. They had negotiated with the Fulbrights for scholarships to create capacity for teaching in the Faculty of Law. So we were the first people to benefit from it. It was a meritocracy. They went to the list. They looked at who graduated in which positions, and we went. And
who were you with?
I went with the Honorable Dr. Justice Smokin Wanjala.
Okay, the top two students in your class?
Yes, the two of us.
How long were you there?
We were there for 2 years. It was a wonderful experience.
Can you account for all your movements while in the US?
We were young.
Would you term those years as the wilderness years?
Let us say we did the things of young people, and we learned some law. I learned something from the Americans, actually. Although we had already studied international law, which is what I was really interested in. We'd been taught here by a Swiss professor who had been seconded by the Swiss government to teach in the School of Diplomacy, Dietrich Kappeler, who became a dear friend as well. So, and he was a very, very good, profound lawyer in the European tradition. He taught doctrine and taught it very, very well. But in America, I read another way of thinking about international law, and it was useful.
What was your degree on? Your master's in what?
Oh, I took. My main courses were in international law, and I took a jurisprudence, a legal theory subsidiary there. But I wrote my long paper on U.S. foreign policy and human rights in Latin America. When I watch television today, it looks like I was a prophet.
With what is happening in the US now, it speaks to you what you wrote about.
It's
Okay. What is your thesis in the paper?
well, basically, I was saying that there was an incongruence between what American policy on paper was and the human rights situation in Latin America at the time, because there were a lot of dictatorships there that were actively supported by the American government and whose human rights record was atrocious. That's what basically I was saying.
I can see it going on today. Now, let's talk about your pupilage. Tell us about it. Who was your pupil master?
Well, that's an interesting. When I left university, my pupilage was at HHM, and I think the pupil master was Peter Ripelli, but I did not last a week. And as fate would have it, William Mutunga had just been released from detention, and he was seeking to open an office, and because he was no longer employable by public bodies. And so I ran into him and he said, look, you have to come and help me run the office. I say, Willie, I am a pupil. I need to be taught first. So he said, okay, come and help me run the office, then you will be my pupil. So that was another fascinating experience, because I never quite got instruction as a pupil. I started off helping Willie run his office.
You started running before you could walk.
Yes.
How was the experience like?
Oh, it was fascinating. It was fascinating because I went straight into not drafting things for people to tell me to cancel with their red pen. I went in to do the real thing.
And filing in court?
And filing and serving and doing whatever.
What kind of matters was Willie Mutunga handling?
Willie was very well supported by his students. So those who had gone into insurance companies and so on were giving him insurance defense work. So we were quite busy defending, running down, and other. We used to do criminal cases and so on. I learned a lot.
Is there something you didn't like about pupilage?
Well, I had a lot of freedom. So I loved it. Willie was a sportsman, and he went to play football every afternoon. So part of my pupilage duties, these days I see pupils complaining that they have been sent on non-pupilage work. Part of my pupilage duties were to drop Willie at the university sports ground, take his car, go to pick his schools at pick the kids at State House, primary, the school there, take them home, go back and pick Willie, then drop myself at the School of Law. I enjoyed it.
You were his chauffeur?
Yeah, I was his chauffeur.
Oh, you enjoyed it. There's something you didn't like about pupilage?
About pupilage or about the School of Law?
Both. Or tell us about the School of Law. How was it?
Oh, it was a 5-star hotel.
I think people listening to you now would be shocked that KSL was a 5-star hotel.
KSL was a 5-star hotel. And
how is that?
It was a live-in place. They had people helping you with your laundry, whatever. The food was good. They dropped you. There was a school bus that dropped you outside the chambers while you are doing pupilage. We had a lot of camaraderie. We played volleyball. We watched movies. It was a great time. I don't remember.
How much was the fee at that time?
We didn't pay. We were paid by the Office of the Attorney General, 600 shillings.
That's a radical difference between what was then and what is now. Now, let's talk about your two areas of practice, legal practice and academia. Have you had to choose between either of them?
Well, quite frankly, I am a reluctant academic. I came to law school to study law so that I could practice law, so I could be a litigator. So the academy took me by surprise. When I was on holiday from the university, I would teach history at a local school. And I was quite surprised that I was reasonably good at it. So that part as an academic came by the way. Then the scholarship to Columbia again cemented that route. And when I started teaching lawyers, I was again surprised at how immensely pleasurable it was and how much I enjoyed it and how it helped me to clarify to myself what the law was, what developments were happening in the law. So it is true to say that I am the accidental academic.
As an academic, is there something you wanted to achieve that you either have or have not achieved?
First of all, when I started teaching, I thought of myself as a skills teacher. I wanted to impart to my students skills, how to be a lawyer in a courtroom, which is what I really enjoyed. And then was surprised to find that in the university setting, they wanted you to be a paperman, a bookman. They were more interested in the papers you were writing, in the research you were doing. And the first time I went for promotion, and the very pompous professors asked me, Mr. Muigai, why don't you have a PhD? I said, Professor, I don't need a PhD. I'm not that kind of teacher. I'm a teacher of skills. And they were shocked. And needless to say, I was not promoted. And this happened twice. And one day I said to myself, what is this PhD? I'm going to do it. I'm going to show them that I can do it.
Oh, that's why you ended up doing a PhD.
Yes. So, but again, and all these accidental things still have their place because researching the PhD helped me to understand other things about the theory and nature of law. I read a lot, deeply, widely. They were not wasted years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about Muhammad Maoga Senior Counsel.
Muhammad Maoga?
I assume
What about him?
You would know who that is. When and how did you meet him?
I met Muhammad Maoga in first year, in September of 1980, when we reported to the university. But he moved over to the law school, and we hit it off almost immediately. He was, we we had many debates in those years about all the fascinating new things we were talking, learning. We went to the School of Law together, and then I went to America, and he went to practice. And when I came back and I started practicing, I went back to helping Willie with his work. But somewhere along the way, I felt that I wanted to practice on my own because I wanted to do more different things that what Willie was involved in. And as fate would have it, one day in the High Court, I met Muhammad and I shared this with him, and he said, "Hey, that's doable. I have just taken offices in Shankara's house. They are larger than I require. Can you come and be, and we share?" And that's how we started off. I had my practice inside his practice. I was his tenant. He was my landlord. I have always treated him with the respect of a first landlord.
Was that his kitchen in his office?
Well, not quite. We were in a building that had been previously occupied by a building society that had collapsed. So we had more space than we needed, but we shared a reception.
How did you decide to practice together and form a partnership?
After a year or so, we were doing quite reasonably well. He had his clients, I had my clients. He would hold my briefs, I would hold his briefs, and we said, why don't we, join our practice? Then we will enjoy economies of scale, and we could market together as a bigger team, which we did, and we've never looked back.
What is it about you or him that has kept you practicing together for 37 years?
Oh, he's a very good businessman, that's for sure. A much better businessman than myself. So he's run the business part of the practice.
What do you bring to the table?
And until you came along, and I think you have done a better part than he did.
Oh, thank you for that. What do you bring to the table, Prof? Now that he's a businessman, the better businessman than you are, what did you bring to the table at the time you were joining?
Well, in the initial years, I was connected to the commercial and corporate life of the city, because most of the people running the insurance companies, the banks, the whatever, were people I had got to meet in the various other endeavors that I was involved in. So I was also a good rainmaker in these years. And I brought skills. We argued many good cases even when we were young, many groundbreaking cases. And we had a reputation for efficiency and for honesty and for being affordable.
For somebody who wants to set up a partnership and they're talking to their friend, what lessons would you, or what things should they take into account as they do that? What would you tell them?
I think trust, really. Trust. Trust is so critical in partnerships. You've just got to trust each other. And you just have to share a value system. And I don't say that in an abstract, ideological way. You must want the same things. And you must have the same sort of goals, and must have the same, moral compass. And it helps. It helps a lot. I have seen many, many partnerships collapse because other than making money together, the partners had no shared worldview.
Why litigation? Why litigation? Why not commercial transactions? Why not conveyancing?
Well, I don't know. I suppose I always admired the drama that goes with litigation, the human drama. Nothing is the same. Every day, every case is different. New people, new problems, and just solving them. I think I would be a very bad conveyancer or commercial lawyer sitting at my desk and just looking at documents. I love people. I love being with people. People keep telling me that you can retire to some very quiet places. I say, that's not me. I was born in a very noisy neighborhood. where the train made a lot of noise. And I want my last days to be among people with noise.
Is there a thrill in litigation? Do you get a thrill when you're in courtroom?
Yeah, I do. I like winning, but I have learned to lose. I like the thrill of solving problems. I like how my clients look when the problem has disappeared, and I feel that I have done something for them.
Now, your oratory skills. You have very good oratory skills, Prof.
You're very kind to say that.
Now, is it a natural gift or do you learn it?
People ask me, where did you go to school like you did? And I say, I am homeschooled. My mother, who had a primary school education, homeschooled me. But I think all she taught me is all I needed. So I am self-taught in many, many, many ways. As I've told you, the years of researching my PhD, I was largely self-taught. The high schools we attended, you just had to go the extra mile on your own. I tell my friends who went to what they call the school, the that, I didn't have the privilege of being taught by very, very learned teachers with many degrees. So we were self-taught in many ways. You read, you debated your colleagues, and you picked up whatever skills.
So for somebody aspiring to a level of eloquence and oratory, what advice would you have for them?
Well, read a lot. Then when you finish, read some more. Then listen to good speakers. They are very, very, very good speakers. And in Kenya, I think they are very, very good speakers. My old teacher, Kotho Gendel, I could have sat and listened to him the whole day. The clarity of his mind and the eloquence, his felicity of diction. Sir George, who taught us administrative law, Sir George Rokwara, who became dean, he was a very, very, very polished. So I think you need to keep the right company.
Preparation. You are known for your meticulous preparation, whether it is for trial or appellate advocacy. Now, do you have any preference to either, for either trial or appellate advocacy?
Oh, I enjoyed trials very, very, very much. In my opinion, if I have one skill which may be above average, it is cross-examination. And I enjoyed cross-examining witnesses and preparing for the cross-examination. But increasingly, trials are fewer and fewer because we've modernized litigation towards more electronic, more written submissions. People like myself are being driven out of the trade. But I did enjoy in my day, making good trial speeches. One of the best tributes I have ever received is from my friend Waweru Gatonye, who told me, you submit as if you are before a jury. I thought that was a good compliment.
Absolutely. Is there a case that sticks out to you, that where you think you did the best job in terms of cross-examination?
Oh, I've done so many cases, so many murders, so many robberies, so many violent people, Jeff. Bad people like Trump would say. Which was my finest hour. I defended a lady called Chebechi Sawe against a murder charge arising out of a fire in the house in is it Nairobi West? And I think that was my finest case as a criminal defense lawyer. I think my cross-examination, my layout of the case, my preparation, I think that was my finest hour.
There's something you taught us about visiting the lockers in Ko.
Absolutely.
In that case, could you tell us about it?
Well, this was a case where my client was accused of having set the house on fire in which her husband died, and in where she was extensively burnt herself. And one of the best decisions I made in that case was to visit the lockers in Ko, to visit the scene myself, and to take my own photographs, my own measurements, and to go into every room, take my own notes. And we won that case on the technical point that the prosecution's case was that only my client had exclusive access to the house. And I was able to demonstrate that there were 3 other methods of an intruder getting into the house. And the benefit of doubt went to my client.
Must thank you profusely for that.
I have never met her again. I hope she had a good life thereafter.
Now, do you have different preparations for a trial or an appeal?
Oh, yes. For the trial, I need to debrief the witnesses myself personally and to visit the scene if the scene is material. But for appellate work, I must confess, Jeff, I know like you are a very hard worker. I like to say that I work smart, so that what I do is I don't work very hard like many of my colleagues who I admire very much. I work with a team, and I get the team to crunch the real stuff, and then I come in and we build the body of our case now with the material that they have worked on for many, many hours.
Is that a recent development, or you've done that for over the years?
Well, initially I didn't have teams to work with, but the more experienced I got, the bigger our firm became. I was able to enjoy the luxury of building a team, working with a team. And I think it's a very good, I wish more senior lawyers were doing it. I still see a lot of very, very senior, very, very competent lawyers who prepare the case from scratch. And by the time you get to presentation, you can see they are sleeping on their feet. They are so tired. So I think that the good thing about working with a team is that you are transferring skills directly. You're direct
training.
skills. You are training, and you are sparing them yourself unnecessary heavy lifting.
What are the biggest mistakes you've made in preparation for trial? Or better yet, what mistakes do you see young advocates make in preparing for trial or for appeals?
I think sometimes it's just the sheer lack of preparation. It's like sometimes you see people argue cases, and it's like he picked the file and rushed to court. The judge is asking basic questions. Sometimes the judge asks, where will I find your defense in the lower court? It's in his bundle. He doesn't know, meaning he hasn't prepared himself. I say, okay, what is the finding? Where shall I find the finding that determined this case in the manner you suggested. He doesn't know because he's not familiar with the brief. So I think that preparation. That's what makes a good lawyer. That's what distinguishes a good one from a bad one.
Okay. Nervousness. Have you ever been nervous in court?
Oh yes, yes, many times.
What would make you nervous in court?
If the case is going in a direction that I had not truly mastered, because I think I thought it didn't matter, then the court decides it matters. Then of course you are in a non-prepared zone.
And how do you deal with that?
I was nervous in the ICC.
Okay.
Because although in my early years I had a very, very good command of the criminal process, I had never been in a forum where I was mixing both my knowledge of criminal law and my knowledge of international law and my knowledge of evidence. So it's a lot to have, it's a lot to bring together. And so you wonder whether you're making the right argument. It was also a bit tricky because I was in the ICC representing the government of the Republic of Kenya, not representing the suspects. And to hug the correct line, to be in the correct territory, it as a matter of perception, you are perceived to be there helping and that had its own challenges.
We enjoyed watching you at the ICC. I must confess, speaking for myself. Tell me, in 2011, you became the AG of the Republic of Kenya. What informed?
By the grace of God.
Amen. What informed the decision to leave private practice to move to become the AG of the Republic of Kenya?
Well, it was something I had always contemplated, as that I wanted to do some public service. Not for long, but I wanted to pay my own debt to a society that had been very good to me. You remember in the old days, we were educated on public resources. But it was also a self-actualization sort of thing. All I can tell you now is that it is an impossible job.
If you were to choose again, would you go back to that job?
No. Nor to any other job in the public service. I have paid my debt, and I don't owe anymore.
What was it like when you went to the state law office? You are a new team member of a very big team of state councils, and you're coming in as a captain, so to speak. What was it like?
Well, first of all, at that time, I went in when the coalition government was still in place. And the coalition government was a government like no other. Because although it was one government, at some level there were two governments in one. So it ran in a fairly unorthodox way. It was the first time that ministers were allowed to bring advisors. And I think we are still feeling the impact of that. So I had probably an opportunity to bring in my advisors from the private sector. I didn't. It was the best decision that I made. Yes, that was the best decision that I made.
Why?
Because, first of all, the two teams never gel. And so you don't have the synergies. What I did in Sharia House was to build a team from the people I found. I I built a team to work with, slowly at first. And I must say I was humbled and shocked by the number of competent people in the system who the system doesn't seem to use. So I was able to forage inside the system and find some gems, and there were many. And then I brought them around me, and we formed a team. And I consider that we did some really good stuff together.
What are some of the key things, achievements you'd say you did as Attorney General of the Republic?
When I went to Sharia House, every morning from the AG's office to the Prime Minister's office was a long queue of people waiting to file things in the company registry. By the time I left, they had long gone, and the entire business registry was online. We did that in 2015. By 2016, it was fully operational. We did it at the same time as the SASA, the Ministry of Lands. I think the Lands Ministry, the queues are still continuing. So I was proud of that achievement, among others.
In terms of being a litigator, is there a case that stands out for you?
Oh, we saw off many cases. I did 5 presidential petitions, I think. I did a number of advisories from the Supreme Court. I did arbitrate. When I went to Sharia House, I set up an arbitration team. It's still there. And for the first time in the history of the Republic of Kenya, we turned the tide. Crooks had decided that Kenya was a victim, and this is where they would have their false arbitration claims and so on. We turned the tide. We won case after case after case, and word went out, go and look for another country, not Kenya. There you would win.
We thank you for your
service. I'm very
service.
Proud of that.
We thank you for that. Now, let's move to something different a bit. Now, you have been a people master to so many. Just to mention a few, the late Justice David Majanja.
One of my best.
The Honorable Otiende Damolo, Senior Counsel. I think Mansour Issa. There is soon to be Senior Counsel Elisha Ongoya, amongst others. Now, they all credit their training and success to the way you have trained them. What do you think you do differently when you train lawyers?
I think the training is personal. So I take the pupil and I put him under my wing, and it is an intense relationship. And I think that is why something rubs off. Some people say my pupils speak like me, or they present like me. I think it is that is what I would. But lately, of course, I haven't had direct pupils as such, other than pupils to the firm. But I do see a number of good pupils come and go.
Let's talk about senior counsel. When did you take silk?
I think the year I went to Sharia House. Yeah, I think it was 2011.
Is there anything that changed when you became a senior counsel? In terms of responsibilities, in terms of privileges?
Because I was Attorney General, even if I wasn't senior counsel, I was still head of the bar, so I would have enjoyed the privileges. I think the rank has been more important to me after I left Sharia House. I think it's a worthy recognition. I think It would help to maintain standards at the bar so that the seniors are able to bring to the junior bar inspiration, direction, etc. But otherwise, nothing much changed after I took the title.
Do you think anything should be changed in the process in which senior counsel are appointed?
Oh, for sure. I don't think to be chairman of the Law Society is a qualification for senior counsel. I think we should have an objective criteria for everybody. Everybody. Same criteria. And it should be a well-defined criteria set out way in advance so that people know.
We're almost winding up. Now, these days you seem to concentrate more on constitutional law and arbitration. Speaking of arbitration, what is the direction of travel?
Well, I think arbitration is enjoying a very good revival. Can I call it a revival, or is it? It's enjoying a very good run. I think the number of arbitrations are rising dramatically. I think the people in the industry are increasing. I think the levels of training is high. And I think it is the future of dispute resolution to some extent, especially commercial dispute resolution and construction dispute resolution and project dispute resolution. Because the courts are overloaded, overworked with other important things. So I think that's the way to go. I am concerned, however, that there are a number of issues about arbitration that are worrisome. Arbitrators are meant to cost less. They should cost less than the other system. That's not happening. We are not seeing that. So parties are getting worried and saying, let's take our chances in court. I think arbitrators should charge less than they are charging now. Arbitrations are taking long. I think arbitrators should expedite the process. There are very few but damaging cases where the integrity of the process is questioned. I think that we need to be very vigilant about that, because once that infection gets into the body of arbitration, it's very hard to cure it. But I have no doubt that it's the direction to go.
Do you enjoy being an arbitrator as adjudicating a dispute compared to being a pleader of cases, a litigator?
Actually, I enjoy both. But, it's very hard to give up what you grew up on. So that I really do enjoy, arguing the case. I enjoy that. But I also enjoy being in a panel, especially an international panel. It's very interesting. When we went to university, we were told there is common law, there is civil law, there is Roman Dutch law, as if they were things that would never meet. These days, I sit in an international panel with a Dutch lawyer, with a French lawyer, with an Indian lawyer, and there is absolutely no difference in our understanding of what is the issue before us, what are the rules to be applied to resolve it, and what should be the outcome be. So it's quite enjoyable.
Have you ever considered a career on the bench?
Or a full-time career on the bench? No. No.
Part-time?
Part-time, probably. But full-time, no. I value my freedom. Since I left Sharia House, the one thing I have truly, truly treasured is my freedom, so that I can pace myself, do the cases I want, do the arbitrations I want, and then do other things that I enjoy.
Now, you're also an author. Your latest book, Power, Politics, and the Law, is partly about history, has a historical dimension. Why do you think that's important in understanding Kenyan constitutional law?
Well, right now, I think, in fact, when I listen to the discussion about where is Kenya, where is it going, where can it possibly go, one of the sad things I notice is that many of the commentators are not aware of the history. They don't ask themselves, how did we get here? There is if you read the history, it explains itself very, very well. We will never understand how to reform the institutions of our country if we don't know when the rain began to beat us. So that's why history for me is so important. And I wrote that book in the hope that a new generation of lawyers will never have to write that book. They will just need to read it to know how we got here. And if we are in a bad place, to know how we can fix what is not working.
Do you enjoy history, reading history?
Very much. I enjoyed reading history a lot. I like listening to history podcasts. I like watching history in documentaries and so
on. What books or reading habits would you recommend to a young Githu Muigai joining the profession today?
That's a very interesting question, Jeff. I have now become addicted to audiobooks, and because I can read them anywhere. When I start coming to work, I put on my whatever, I listen, and I finish many books in a week. But the pleasure of a good old style hard copy of a book is still hard to resist. And I would, if I spoke to myself at the age of 20 when I reported to the university, I would say read a mix of books, novels, plays, poems, history, philosophy, politics, a mix of that. In the old days, when they said that a lawyer is learned, it's because the lawyers were truly, truly learned. They had a wide knowledge base. I think we can recover that, and it's important.
Outside the courts and the academy, where would we find you and what would you be doing?
If I was not in court and I wasn't teaching, you would find me probably in this years that I'm in now. You probably will find me playing golf, something that would have shocked a young me very much. I thought that golf would be the kind of sports for the bourgeoisie, but I do enjoy it very much. I like to travel. It's the getting there that I hate, but having arrived, I enjoy being in those places. I hate flying, but there's no other way to get there. So that's it. So as I contemplate the next phase of my life, I see myself doing more and more of that. Traveling, speaking. I'm enjoying speaking engagements, going to a university, giving a lecture, going to a workshop, and that sort of thing.
So, Prof, 4 decades into practice, having done everything and achieved almost everything, what next?
Oh, there is so much more. There is so much more. I'm just beginning to work on a case that I think is going to be the most important case I have ever done in my life. And so I am not slowing down. I am just about to get started.
All right. Thank you very much. Professor Githu Muigai, thank you for joining us today.